in the holy presence of God. And as we gather this afternoon, we invite your Holy Spirit to inspire, guide, and teach in everything that we do today. We give our anxious thoughts and receive your peace. We pray that through your divine guidance, we would learn how to listen attentively to the inputs of our speakers and panelists. May we appreciate their effort in imparting their knowledge to us. May we interact in the forum and discourse so we could comprehend more about the subject matter of the forum. May we value each other's contributions as building blocks towards harmony and peace. Grant that as we interact with one another, we recognize the fact that all our activities here today should be accomplished for your greater glory. Amen. That in all things, God may be glorified.
Good afternoon, Ma'am Clarissa. Can you make me a co-host po? I'll be presenting po the national anthem. Thank you po.
Okay.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Walang sound.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng pagaw, ay hinatang tula, kawin sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang may di magdidinig. Luman ang araw ng walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang hindi kaya ng pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you so much for that invoking and well-spoken prayer, partner. To formally start our webinar session, our forum, may we call on Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana from Commission on Human Rights and Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance, or PILG, for a welcome remarks. Let's give her a virtual round of applause.
Good day, everyone. Thank you very much for attending this webinar series. Today, we will be discussing the implementation of the landmark decision of the Supreme Court, dated July 3, 2018, entitled Congressman Hermelando I. Mandanas versus Executive Secretary Ochoa. The Mandanas case was an en banc ruling, hence was the collective voice of the court. The Mandanas ruling undoubtedly will have far-reaching effects in local governance in the years to come, since it imposes a dramatic increase in the fiscal resources to local government units. Along with greater economic resources at its disposal, is the consequent empowerment of the different levels of our local government units. With greater economic power Greater responsibility is demanded from our local government officials elected to office. That is why the discussion of the Mandanas ruling is very much tied with the election of our local leaders this coming May 2022. We need leaders who are competent and responsible in the discharge of their authority. Otherwise, the noble objectives of empowering and devolving more powers and resources to the local government units will remain but an illusion. We need to elect local leaders who will ensure that the increase in fiscal revenues be translated into concrete services that are enjoyed by their constituents and that every peso will be accounted for. We need to elect competent local leaders who have the vision to use these economic benefits to uplift the status of his or her municipality, city, or province, so that their constituents need not go to the metropolis in search of opportunities to better their lives. We must not forget that the ultimate objective of the Mandanas ruling is for local governments to be catalysts in paving the way for a better quality of life for every Filipino, especially those in the fringes of society. Today, we will be listening to experts share with us how the Mandanas ruling, if properly implemented, will impact our lives, but more importantly, only if we elect the right leaders in these very crucial May elections. I hope that our discussion will also elicit a conscious effort to find ways to elect the servant leaders we so deserve. Once again, welcome to our webinar series on the Mandanas ruling. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much, Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana. Now, may we now call on Mr. Manuel Gotis, a member of Local Government Development Foundation or Logodef Board of Trustees, a former DILG BLGS Director and Region 4A Director for his opening remarks. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Thank you, Karel. Commissioner Gwen, Professor Tayaw, Dr. Caminero, Dr. Alex Brillantes, participants, good afternoon to everyone. In behalf of the Local Government Foundation, I would like to thank you all for sharing your time with us for this very important topic, very timely and very important topic. Very important in the sense that we will be electing new local officials come May 9, who will assume their three-year term of office on noon of June 30, 2022. And certainly, they are faced with tremendous challenges. Alam naman natin na nandiyan pa rin ang pandemic. It requires a lot of budget. Alam naman natin na we are not excused from man-made and natural disasters. Nandiyan pa rin yan. So the new local officials will be facing a lot of challenges, and therefore they need the resources. Because local governments, pursuant to Republic Act 7160, through the devolved duties and responsibilities to local governments, they are in the front lines of providing basic services. And therefore, they should need, as I said, more resources. Unfortunately, during the issuance of 7160, my own analysis is there was tremendous rules and responsibilities devolved to local governments na kulang yung budget. At laging sinasabi ng mga local governments dati, kulang ang budget na binibigay ng national government sa local governments. Alam naman natin kung paano sinishare yung internal revenue allotment, di ba? That is, the IRA is 40% of the national internal revenue collections. At before Mandanas-Garcia ruling, hindi kasama doon sa national internal revenue collection yung sa customs Bureau of Customs Collections. So nung lumabas yung Mandanas-Garcia ruling, Ed, you can correct me, I understand na tumaas yung pie na paghahatian ng mga local governments kasi nakasama na yung sa Bureau of Customs. But yun na nga, pero para sa akin, lots leave much to be desired insofar as the distribution of internal revenue allotment. Paano ito dinidistribute sa local governments? May criteria, no? Population, land area, and equal sharing. Hindi ko na matandaan kung ilang percent yung province, 23, 34 yata yung sharing dyan, ano? Pero sa akin, yung yung existing sharing formula, maraming issues surrounding that. Ano? Central to the issues to me is the equitability of sharing the internal revenue allotment to local governments. Bakit ko nasabi ito? Even rich local governments like Makati, Quezon City, and so many rich local governments ay tumatanggap pa rin sila ng internal revenue allotment. Samantalang yung aking bayan sa Gubat, Sorsogon ay fourth class municipality, tumatanggap pa rin. Pero kulang yung ira na binibigay sa kanila given the huge challenges of basic service delivery requirements ng ating mga constituents. So, equitability, ano? Noong nasa service pa ako, ang alam ko, may local government sa Metro Manila na nag-budget surplus. Ibig sabihin, pati yung mayor na yun, hindi, naubusan ng idea kung paano gastusin yung pera niya. But yet, tumatanggap pa rin ng internal revenue allotment yung city na yun. Bakit hindi nalang tanggalin yun? Alisin yung tanggalan siya ng internal revenue allotment at kung magkano man yung budget na yun, yung sa kanya, i-share na sa poorer local governments. In the case of Japan nga, yung Metropolitan Tokyo, kasi may ira-ira din sila doon eh. Yung Metropolitan Tokyo, hindi na tumatanggap ng ira yon. Kasi talagang napakayaman na local government. Sinishare na doon sa mga prefectures na mahirap. So, ganun yan. Ano? And may mga studies na dyan. When I was in the service, we got funding support from JICA to study the equitability sharing of internal revenue allotment. And we got 7 formula kung paano i-equate yung distribution ng internal revenue allotment. At yan ay binigay namin sa Congress. Awa ng Diyos. Nandun lang sa Congress. So to me, sundan ko yung sinabi ni Commissioner Gwen kanina. May mga proposals na yan, ano, sina Dr. Alex Brillantes, may proposals na on various amendments to the local government code. Ang gaganda ng mga recommendations. At yun ang binigay din sa Congress. Pero walang nangyayari. To me, siguro there should be a very, very potent organization. Para bang lobby group or interest group na mayroong very strong linkage sa Congress to really influence Congress decision doon sa mga mga dapat i-amend sa local government code. Siguro timely ito, ano, we will have a new president, we will have a new set of senators, congressmen, they are the policymakers. Maganda talaga sana kung meron talagang grupo na malakas sa kanila na pakikinggan. Kasi sayang yung mga studies. Sayang yung mga studies na nagawa na napakaganda pero kulang lang sa legislative decision ng ating pamahalaan. So with this, I hope that this forum will generate further discussion on the several issues confronting the distribution of the Internal Revenue Allotment. Thanks to the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, tumaas yung pie lumaki ang pie na paghahatian ng mga local governments because they are in the front lines. The local governments are in the front lines of providing services to our people. Maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manuel Gotes. Now may we call on Professor Gian Paulo Ines, the founding chair of Political Science Department of San Beda University, Manila, for a partner message. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Thank you, Joel. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana, Sir Manuel Gotis, and Sir Goats. On behalf of San Beda University's Political Science Department, I would like to commend the core organizers of this event, namely Logodef, PILG, and Hans Foundation, as well as the partner organizations for coming up with this timely forum on the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and local governance in the 2022 elections. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank and welcome those who are with us via Zoom and via PILG Facebook page, especially the officers and members of the Power of the Filipino Youth and the Republic. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us in discussing the landmark Mandanas ruling and its significance and implications to local governance. Indeed, the Mandanas ruling has somehow restructured our knowledge of Philippine local governance, especially in terms of fiscal autonomy, as it broadened the base of national taxes from which the share of local government units may be computed, in line, of course, with Section 6, Article 10 of the 1987 Constitution. And some experts say that the ruling will likely strengthen decentralization and improve the delivery of social services throughout the country. Hence, if the implementation of the ruling will enhance decentralization and the delivery of social services, then that could only mean that the ruling will be beneficial to many Filipinos. But of course, there may be some nuances and other significant areas that may be considered in the Mandanas discourse. And so we have this forum to discuss all possible views. I am confident that this forum will be able to achieve its objective of providing the public with the right information about the Mandanas ruling, which can also help them to be more critical in choosing their local chief executives come May 2022. We have very credible resource speakers and panel reactors, and I am actually familiar with some of them. My favorite teacher when I was in college, Professor Edmond Tayaw, is one of the leading experts in Philippine local governance. My student Yuri Adulian is also here. He is the founder of a growing youth organization, the Power of the Filipino Youth. And of course, former Mayor Mary Jane Ortega of San Fernando City. She's an excellent local chief executive. Maragsakanak nga makita ka Apo Mayora, uray virtually. And to Dr. Avila and Dr. Caminero, as well as Dr. Brillantes, it is an honor to be with you in this webinar. So again, congratulations to the core organizers, and I hope that all of us will learn from this forum. God bless the Philippines. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Professor Gian Paulo Ines, for that partnership message. Kai, last July 3, 2018, as we remember, the Supreme Court on its decision on two separate petitions filed by Congressman Hermelando Mandanas and Congressman Enrique Garcia Jr., along with other local elected officials, granted the Mandanas-Garcia petition, both challenging the manner in which the national government computed the internal revenue allotment shares of the local government units.
That's right, Drew. The petitioners pleaded with the Supreme Court to mandate the national government to compute the internal revenue allotment on the basis of just shares of local government units based from all national taxes, incorporating the national internal revenue taxes and customs duties. And just like what you've mentioned a while ago, last 3rd of July 2018, the Supreme Court declared as unconstitutional the phrase internal revenue that appears in Section 284 of the Republic Act number 7160 or the Local Government Code. This sets the base for the deletion of the phrase and the computation of the internal revenue allotment of local government units.
Yes, Kai, and the Supreme Court ruled that determination of just share of the LGUs should not be based on national internal revenue taxes, but should be based on all national taxes. We arrived at a question. So, what does Mandanas-Garcia ruling really means? And what is its significance to the local government unit or to their local governance in general? No.
Yes, that's exactly why we are gathered here today for us to unfold what is the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and its significance to local governance. And this session is entitled Mandanas-Garcia Ruling Implementation Webinar Series for Voters Jump Off to LGU Seminar Training After Elections. And our main objective is to, of course, inform the general public of the significance of the implementation of the landmark Mandanas-Garcia ruling to the work and/or performance of LGUs in the coming years and to make the choosing of the right local leader more critical.
Yes, for this session, we will have two major topics. First, what is Mandana's ruling encompassing, of course, the background of decentralization that led to the filing of the landmark case, and also the salient points of the decision. And for the second part is the implication of the landmark ruling, encompassing the impact on the national government, especially national government agencies, considering the way the decision is to be implemented, and of course, the ways forward, the imperative of the national government working with LGUs and the LGUs with other LGUs, and the expectations, of course, from the LGUs.
Yes, and now I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our first guest speaker. He is the Executive Director of the Pioneer Development Organization for Local Governance, the Local Government Development Foundation or Logodef. He has worked closely with various government and non-government organizations developing policies, programs, and plans for local governance. He had served as an expert in governance in the country and abroad under the auspices of various international organizations such as the European Union, Japan International Cooperation Agency, Asian Development Bank, and United Nations Development Program, to name a few. He recently served as the political economy expert for USAID Chemonics, the Deliver Mandanas project that assisted in the formulation of the Mandanas-Garcia rollout with the national government. He has been a member of the Consultative Committee to review the 1987 Constitution, the Constitutional Commission that drafted the Bayanihan Federal Philippine Constitution, chairing 2 of its 9 committees. He has written a number of books on federalism, political systems, and local governance, and taught at various universities. He is also a fellow at Brenthurst Foundation in Johannesburg, South Africa, and before that at Leibniz University of Hanover. And he is also a popular political analyst recognized by the media in the country and abroad. Discussing what is the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and its significance to local governance, let us all welcome of course, Professor Enbon Tayo. Let's give him a round of applause.
Maraming salamat, Kyrel, Jewel. If I may be allowed to share my screen, please. As we were discussing before the start of the forum, I was saying that all the while I was hoping that those running for office would at least have a working idea of what the Mandanas-Garcia ruling is. No? And unfortunately, albeit of course that my having been invited in some of the forums on TV and in other occasions related to the elections, I have yet to encounter a particular candidate that is who is really aware of what this landmark ruling is. But unfortunately, wala eh, no? So we have yet to identify one. Hence, there's a need really to popularize the issue and make the people understand how far-reaching the effect of this decision is. No? Hence, this event. And I cannot thank you enough, the Hans Seidel Stiftung and the Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance for helping us put up this webinar and hopefully eventually do more information dissemination to not only to the public but to our public officials, especially the local officials. No? Salamat din sa dati kong kaklase, si Professor Gian Ines. No? Professor daw niya ako. But I'm so proud to have met your own students yourself. No? So if I may share screen now, I will discuss with you, the issue of implementing the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. I actually call it further decentralization. It was mentioned in the introduction that to a certain extent I got involved in the quote-unquote formulation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling rollout. And again, I have to tell you that there's so much more to be had. And of course, we've invited some of the stakeholders involved in the final rollout of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. And hopefully we can still enrich further or enhance not only the preparation of the local government units, but also the national government agencies. You know what is lacking in the kind of government that we have? We call it governance, but actually, the turf or political turfing still abounds. So in other words, the limitations in policy making and policy implementation has so much to do with the kind of politics that we have. That's why every time that I have an opportunity to discuss what is politics in this country, why is it the kind that we are not very satisfied, is for the simple reason that our kind of politics is plain and simple partisanship. And this is reflected in the kind of governance, the quality of government that we have. And so people like us in the development work, and even those engaging the different levels of government and officials cannot get really tired, cannot get tired and should not give up, hope and continue to engage our officials para, alam mo na, mag-improve naman ng konti, yung klase ng paggogobyerno meron tayo. So, kaya ako naisip na, we start with the story of Philippine decentralization. Bakit ba nagkaroon ng Mandanas-Garcia ruling? For the longest time, and that's why I, felt so glad to meet again old friends and collaborators in pushing the local governance envelope further. Is when I started working on local governments, and I cannot deny that this has been quite a while already. I started engaging local governments as early as 2007, when I took over the leadership at the Local Government Development Foundation. At that time, talagang, young as you are full of hopes, and you're very, optimistic that you can do so much, no, in pushing the local governance envelope further. Pero yun na nga, no, we're now on the year 2022, and there's not much that has yet to happen. Decentralization was introduced in the 1987 Constitution as one of the components of what we consider as democratization. Kaya lang, kaya nga hindi masyadong nagwo-work yung klase ng gobyerno meron tayo, kasi many of the good provisions of the 1987 Constitution, in fact, we have very good provisions in the 1987 Constitution. Ang problema, hindi mo ma-implement yan. Because, while the provisions are good, these are at best only motherhood statements. What makes our governance, our governmental system weak is because we have provisions that in effect enervates instead of strengthens, no, the capacity of government agencies. Mahina yung ating public institutions. Okay? Pero maganda sana itong decentralization kasi hindi lang ito political reform. It is an administrative reform. It's a political reform because you empower the local government so that they are not beholden to the national government, hence supposedly preventing another martial law, another imposition of overly centralized kind of politics and governance. But it is also an administrative reform. You can't imagine local governments or cities and the provinces, especially, our tourism landmarks, no, to, become well-known to many of us, if not for decentralization. Hindi madedevelop ang kalakihan ng ating countryside without decentralization. Ang problema, hindi na sustained. Reforms were not sustained. That the purported administrative reform, as I was trying to impress on you at the outset, became contingent to political dynamics. No? So the prescription to review the code every 5 years, supposedly, no, that's Section 521 of the local government code, did not happen. That there has been no change in decentralization since 1991. In other words, the Mandanas-Garcia ruling indicates the existing mechanism reached the tipping point that further decentralization is needed. In other words, when decentralization was implemented, introduced to our governance system, it appeared that it's not well enough. No, it's not well equipped to actually ensure decentralization. And if you are going to review, no, the kind of intergovernmental relations, no, from 1991 up to today, you will notice that there's some kind of a pendulum, no, there. Kasi tuwing magpalit tayo ng Pangulo, ng Presidente, nagbabago yung orientation ng national government. Minsan, nakasuporta sa local government, minsan, hindi nakasuporta sa hindi nakasuporta. At ang nakakalungkot dito, when you engage the national government agencies, there's always this assumption, and I have no idea why, they feel that, they are the only ones who actually know what governance is, and that local government officials somehow need to learn more. Hindi pa sapat siguro na makita nila at ma-acknowledge nila na marami nang nangyari as a result of decentralization. So, ito ang naiisip ko lang na baka naman sakali magkaroon ng pagkakataon. No? We have to start with the basic considerations. We have to clarify misnomers, which actually are the very reasons for turfing, no? Yung kanya-kanya at yung parang teritoryo mo, no, yung mga ahensya na dapat nag-uusap, nagko-collaborate sa national level, parang may kanya-kanya silang espasyo, may kanya-kanya silang kaharian, no? Unang-una po, lalo na pagka nakausap natin ng mga lokal na pamahalaan, at ito'y nakakatawa, no? Nakita ko yung ibang mga dating estudyante ko at staff na nagpa-participate dito, and I'm sure that they can relate. I've been sharing with them some stories that I've encountered, no, in the course of my working with local governments and local communities. May mga barangay, may mga munisipyo na ang intindi nila sa autonomy independence. Hindi po ganun yun. Okay? In fact, pag tinawag po nating devolution o yung granting of powers to the next level of government, hindi ibig sabihin na, uy, magkahiwalay na tayo, ito yung papel mo, ito yung papel ko, so wala na akong kinalaman sa ginagawa mo. Hindi po ganun yun. No? In other words, should not be taken to mean that responsibilities, that is powers and functions are now completely separate. Hindi ho ganun. No? Ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, when we speak of devolution, may assignment, no, of powers and responsibilities na ikaw ang kwan dito, ikaw ang responsible dito, but it doesn't mean that you cannot relate or you cannot work or ask assistance with the other levels of government, whether your fellow local government unit or the next level of government. No? There is this principle of subsidiarity. This is basically the reason why you assign powers and responsibilities. It is based on the principle of subsidiarity. It's the basic principle that the matter ought to be handled by the authority that can handle it most effectively. So may mga gawain na dapat ginagawa ng local government, hindi ng national government. Pasensya na, bagyan ko kayo ng example. Yun pong social welfare. Alam mo, minsan hanggang ngayon pinag-iisipan ko, nilagay na nga natin sa local government code yung social welfare as one of the devolved functions. Pero kung tutusin, hindi pa din siya talaga ganun ka-devolve. Marami mga devolved functions na hindi mo ma-devolve, unang-una dahil sa lack of resources, pero pangalawa, karamihan dito ayaw talagang i-devolve. No? So kaya, kumbaga parang pilitan, no? Naging sapilitan itong Mandanas-Garcia ruling. That's why I said it's a tipping point. Ang kulang kasi dito is yung IGR mechanism. The key is in intergovernmental relations. Because at the end of the day, we have to define really how the different local government units, how adjacent local government units can in fact work together. Most especially, take note, we have a very fragmented local governments. Ilang beses na po nating sinasabi yan. Ilang beses ko nang ina-explain na, halimbawa, ikumpara lang natin ang Pilipinas sa kapitbahay natin, ang Indonesia. Hindi ko alam kung maiinis ka o matatawa. Ang Pilipinas po ay 16.4% lang ng total land area ng Indonesia. Ibig sabihin, 6 na Pilipinas, okay, ang size total land area ng Indonesia. Pero alam po ba ninyo na 33 lang ang kanilang probinsya? Tayo, dati-dati 80, ngayon 81 yata, muntik pang maging 83. No? Hindi ko malimutan yung gusto nilang hatiin yung Palawan at nabanggit ko pa sa isang public hearing sa Senado yata, yung kung hindi ako nagkakamali, na hindi sila satisfied sa Palawan, kaya gusto nilang magkaroon ng Pala 2 at saka Pala 3. May mga kaibigan tayong nagalit sa atin, pero sa totoo lang, hindi na dapat natin hatiin pa yung mga napakaliliit na nating mga lokal na pamahalaan, kasi isa ito sa mga rason kung bakit napakahina ng ating local governance. Okay? So, isang bagay lang po yun kung tutusin. So, you can just imagine how imperative is IGR. Gaano kahalaga ang intergovernmental relations so that LGUs can pull their resources together, especially when they have to act on a common project, a common interest, and so on. Pag-uusapan natin yan, malaking factor yan sa pag-implement ng Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Pero bago tayo magpunta doon, ipaalala ko sa inyo, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the so-called rapid field appraisals. Ito po ay ginawa ng Asia Foundation with the support of the USAID when the local government code was implemented. Every year there was an assessment, and ang pinakahuli noong 2010, we were speaking with the Dean Alex earlier, perhaps natatandaan niya to at makadagdag siya doon sa pinakahuling assessment noong 2010. Sayang hindi pa nasusundan itong rapid field appraisal, ano? Bigyan ko lang kayo po ng snapshot, no? Pag tiningnan mo yung naka-highlight diyan, no? Noong 1995, isipin ninyo, 1991 yung Local Government Code, nagsimula ang implementation ng code 1992. Noong 1995, ang isa sa mga nakitang problema o challenges, while national government agencies had not proactively pursued new roles. Sa madalit sabi, parang lukewarm pa yung national government agencies sa pag-devolve. Okay? So, pero may mga milestones, the year after that, in 1996, one of the findings highlighted that there is this deepened and and more mature management of service delivery at the local level. So nagre-respond ang LGUs natin, no? So noong 1997 there was it was noted that there's this overall success in decentralization. But the still notable constraint is that further decentralization or democratic development was reluctance at the center to change. So parang nung time na yun, ang hirap pang mag-adjust ng national government agencies. So hanggang nung 1999 and 2000, may mga milestones dyan, no? So the significant strides in improving the match between local needs and technical assistance that have been achieved. So makikita mo, no? 7 years after implementation, meron ng magagandang milestones talaga. And in September 2000, decentralization has spawned a number of tangible improvements in local governance. So we're talking of what? The year 2000. No? That's 22 years earlier. So you can just imagine what kind of achievements, what kind of milestones we now enjoy at the local level. And still, this reluctance at the national level can still be felt. In fact, that's why we have to continue engaging the national government, no, particularly the national government agencies, in order that they will see the LGUs and the capacities of LGUs in a different line. Okay. Ay ano ba yung key points? Ito na. Pag-usapan na natin, naintindihan na natin ngayon decentralization. Okay? So ano ba yung mga key points dun sa Supreme Court decision, the Mandanas-Garcia ruling? Una, it redefines the determination of the LGU share from national revenue. It may probably, not probably, but it may have amended some parts of the code, but it does not revise the local government code. So madalit sabi, when we speak of decentralization or when we speak of the work of LGUs, the main legislation is still the local government code. Basically, what happened is that the budget, ang pag-isipan natin mabuti, ang i-highlight natin, itong budget, it's a single pie. No? Hindi ibig sabihin na, merong Mandanas-Garcia ruling, gawa tayo ng separate budget to increase the budget of the LGU. Hindi ho ganon. When we do budgeting, we're only looking at one single pie. The increase in share simply means increase in the slice of the pie, a share from the same pie, and should not be taken to mean that there's another pie to support the increase. Okay? So having another pie means not addressing the problem of overlapping of functions and unfunded mandates. I'm highlighting this because while every year nag-i-increase ang budget ng gobyerno, hindi ibig sabihin na dapat mo talagang i-increase kasi dadagdagan mo yung pondo ng local government units at hindi mababago yung taas. In fact, napakalaking factor po ito, lalong-lalo na sa organization natin, sa national level. I don't know if other academics, other students of public administration will share my view. But to my mind, we have a very heavy, national bureaucracy. Ang daming ahensya, ang daming tao, at tayo ay tuloy-tuloy pa din nagbubuo at gumagawa ng mga bagong ahensya. May problema ka sa tubig, gawa ka ng Department of Water. May problema ka sa migrant workers, gawa ka ng Department of Migrant Workers. Napakahabang diskusyon po ito. So, ang dapat nating tinitingnan, paano natin i-optimize yung mga resources na meron tayo at yung mga ahensya na meron tayo. Okay? Sa madalit sabi, ang tingin ko, itong implementation ng Mandanas-Garcia ruling means further decentralization. In other words, it's not right to say full devolution because in the first place, we cannot even imagine just yet what full devolution is because there's so much more to be done in the current state of decentralization. Okay? So, implementation will still have to be based mainly on the code and there is no executive order that can supersede a Republic Act. Okay? What are being devolved are not functions. In fact, I'm not sure really why it's continuously being referred to as functions. But what is being devolved, yung ibinababa ng national government as a result of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling are programs and projects. Yung mga proyekto na pinapatupad at pinupondohan sa national level, yun ang ibababa kasi doon kukunin yung dagdag na share ng local government units. Hindi dapat na magdadagdag ka ng budget kasi nga dadagdagan mo yung budget ng local government units. So uulitin natin, may mga proyekto, halimbawa, merong proyekto ng feeding, no? May feeding program at the national level. Imbes na national government ang gagawa nun, ibababa na sa local government. Sila na ang gagawa nung project na yon. Ganun po ang epekto nitong Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Ngayon, ang sabi nila, merong vertical imbalance at ito'y ipinakita sa isang study, no? Na pinapakita doon yung infrastructure, which is one of the devolved functions, will result to a vertical imbalance in the sense that there will be more shares on the part of the provinces, mababawasan yung sa mga municipalities. Actually, hindi naman po ganun-ganun lang ang dapat nating pag-isipan. Unang-una po, dapat nating isaalang-alang, we should remember that the perspective and the approach at the national level is different from the local level. No? It is sectoral, that is budgeting is done by agencies. This is mainly because the scope is broader and of course the resources available are considerably more. Meaning, when you formulate programs and projects at the national level, you have a different perspective, you have different considerations and compared to the local governments. No? In other words, the priorities are different at the local level as the considerations are different. The approach likewise is expectedly different as the scope is considerably more limited but on the other hand, more specific. Sa madalit sabihin, hindi pwedeng you expect the same approach, you expect the same strategies, no? As formulated and as implemented at the national level to be done exactly at the local level. Halimbawa, meron kang yung hinighlight ko dyan, yung binilugan ko ng yellow line, yan ay mga, ang tawag dito, local infrastructure projects. No? Ang pwede mo namang gawin, hindi porke national road ito o provincial road, lahat ibibigay mo sa probinsya. Pwede namang hati-hatiin yan. Ano? And the result will be, yun na nga, local governments will really have to collaborate and work together so that in the end, when they implement it, it's not only limited to a particular area. Mabuti madidiscuss ito. Nakita ko yung presentation ni Dr. Avila, no? My mentor in public finance. No? So, sa madalit sabi, it's not only because the code or it's not only because decentralization simply means the national government cannot tell the LGUs what they can do and what they cannot do. No? But logic simply tells you that whether we like it or not, the strategy as the orientation is different between the different levels of government. Ganun lang kasimple yung logic nun. What we need is an integrated governance. I'm looking at the clock and sobra na ako ng 2 minutes. No, mabilis na lang. The key moving forward and making the most of the landmark decision, we have to take note the unique characteristics of each LGU. Especially that a good many are in fact coastal LGUs. We have more than 50%, if I'm not mistaken, which are coastal LGUs. There are key challenges. As I've already mentioned in the foregoing, the lack of IGR or intergovernmental relations mechanism in fragmented LGUs. And most especially very weak planning. Ito ang ine-emphasize ko noon when we were working with the national government agencies in the formulation of how to roll out the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Na the mainly steering function of the national government, actually, nung ginawa ko po itong studying to, wala pa yung EO, the mainly steering function of the national government can now facilitate the development and institutionalization of the implementing function of the LGUs. Okay? We can start with planning as this is the key to the success of the rollout, from redefining the roles of each level to the establishment of the Committee on Devolution at the national and regional level. Okay? And of course, as I've said, it's not only IGR from national to local ang pinag-uusapan natin. We should also highlight the interlocal cooperation between the local government units themselves. IGR and planning is key. Okay? When we implement the landmark ruling, let's do a benchmark. Asa na ba tayo ngayon? And then we determine what the objectives are. And of course, the endpoint. PAPs, the programs and projects are the basis only as far as determining how much will be downloaded as a result of further devolving functions as originally provided by the code. But PAPs cannot be absorbed originally. Ito yung in-explain natin kanina. Iba yung pagka-formulate ng PAP sa national level at hindi mo pwedeng asahan na eksaktamentong ganun din ang i-implement at the local level. Okay? Cannot be absorbed originally as it has been designed for implementation at the national level. But it doesn't mean it cannot be implemented at the local level. But, again, the last but is there has to be joint planning. Meron dapat collaboration between the local government units. Existing law should be reviewed and revised accordingly, starting with fragmented LGU. So ito yung pinag-uusapan kanina with Commissioner Gwen, no? That ultimately we have to revise the local government code. So pasensya na, lumampas tayo. Ipakita ko lang tong picture na ito. No? Alam po ninyo yung reality, comprehensive. Kahit na gaano tayo magtagal, magtalo na, mas maganda itong ideya ko kaysa sa ideya mo, at the end of the day, one is seeing an entirely different picture compared to another person. Tuwan-tuwa ako dito sa nakita kong picture na to online. Iniisip ko kung paano ko i-drawing, but I have no idea really how it was presented this way. But, it simply means that at the end of the day, what you're seeing is not the entire reality as compared to the other, that you can't expect the other to do exactly as you do. That for purposes of really accomplishing what's best for everyone, you have to work with the other. So that in the end, the perspectives of both can in fact be realized and enjoyed. Yun lang po. Sana meron tayong natutunan kahit paano. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat.
Again, thank you so much, Prof. Edmund Tayo, for that elucidation as to what the Mandanas-Garcia ruling meant, as well as the underlying significance towards the aspect of local government in the Philippines. Now, as it is said, further decentralization is the description of Mr. Tayo on the implementation of Mandanas-Garcia ruling. And devolution or autonomy does not mean independence. It is more on granting of power to the next level of the government. The programs and projects are being devolved and not the functions itself. Now, moving forward to our next esteemed guest speaker. He is a senior economist and financial specialist with extensive experience in financial and development planning, budgeting, and implementation of development and capacity building projects in different sectors. He has advised national and local government agencies in the areas of public finance management, local government development planning, budgeting and finance, revenue generation, resource mobilization, and financial management. He served as fiscal decentralization expert in local government finance and fiscal decentralization reform program, and second economist for public finance management expert for the European Union or UE supported Philippine health sector reform contract, the third UE funded program to support the Philippine health sector reform agenda. He likewise served as local government unit PFM budget consultant of the second health sector policy support program of from 2007 to 2010, and the chief economist of the National Tax Research Center, DOF, and then subsequently become the LGU Finance Budget Specialist of USAID supported ARD governance and local democracy project from 1997 to 2000. Prior to this, he served in the Department of Finance for 20 years and served as the consultant to Bureau of Local Government Finance, Bureau of Local Government Supervision of DILG. Currently, a part-time faculty member of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Valenzuela Graduate Studies, here with us in discussing the implications of Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Let us all welcome Dr. Antonio Avila. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joel. Itong napahaba yata yung introduction. Okay, anyway, I think a lot of those issues have been discussed by Professor Ed. So I have 20 minutes for 17 slides. So I will be very fast with your indulgence. First slide, please. I will be discussing the impact of the Mandanas ruling on the as far as the national government is concerned, and secondly, what would be the imperative actions the national government working with national government and the local government. So next slide, please. Next slide. Joel, please next slide. Okay. Anyway, my first topic would be about the implications of the Mandanas ruling as far as the national government agencies are concerned. And I would like to show you some of the reactions of national government agencies. Can you please have the next slide? National government agencies regarding the Mandanas ruling. Well, number one, of course, is the reactions of the Department of Finance. Which says that, of course, the Department of Finance and the economic managers have been very apprehensive regarding the Mandanas ruling because of the fact that a lot of the national government resources will be transferred to the local government, and this would have an implication on the budget as well as on the deficit of the local government, especially with the current conditions where we have already the under the pandemic situation. So anyway, of course, one of the factors that about the fiscal sustainability. Okay, next slide, please. This is the concern of the national government agencies, especially the Department of Finance and other departments of budget and management and so on. Now, under the Mandanas ruling, as mentioned by Professor Ed here a while ago, is that the NGAs will be doing the steering while the LGUs will be doing the rowing. So that I think that would be a good arrangement, especially that under the subsidiary principle, the services will be rendered by those close to the people. Then existing PPAs and GS will be phased out to avoid service delivery distortions until 2024. So it's the PPAs or the PAPs that are called sometimes, then it will be phased out to avoid service disruption. And the new PPAs, however, will be done or will be proposed by the national government agencies. And one of the things about the Mandanas ruling, especially under the Executive Order 138, is that the NGAs are required to conduct capacity building to prepare the LGUs to assume the responsibility of cementing the PPAs to be transferred to them. Next slide, please. And here are the amount. No, just have an indication of what are to be transferred, what programs and transferred or to be. By the way, Professor Ed has mentioned that it should be called this Mandanas ruling as a further decentralization. But for me, I think I will call it devolution 2.0. We have devolution 1.0 during the local government code. Now we will call it devolution 2.0. But there are a lot of differences. Okay, so here are some of the programs and projects that will probably be transferred to local government. You know, and if you look at the amount here, the bulk of actually of the PE-based programs and projects that will be transferred is for the DPWH, no? Probably the biggest here. And some of them also are here. So the total amount, this is, I taken this from the CPBRD data. So just to give us an indication to how much would be more or less to be transferred to the LGUs as far as PAP is concerned. Okay, next slide, please. So here are the some, as I mentioned earlier, this is some of the reactions of the issues and concerns that we raised and the implementation of the Mandanas ruling. Number one is that, of course, the tax revenue losses from the pandemic induced economic slump will further remain a increase in the debt in order to fund the COVID-19 responses. And here comes the transfer of the local government or transfer of funds to local governments and national government. So it's really something that the Department of Finance is very worried. And according to the CPBRD, while the Supreme Court ruling is very straightforward. That means you transfer more resources to local governments and to local governments, but in reality, it's not that simple. If you are going to look at the details, as I'm going to discuss later on, there are a lot of nuances and details that need to be resolved before we can successfully implement the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Next slide, please. And the most important task, however, is number one, as the USEC Chairman Adriano of the Department of Agriculture said, that there should be a clear delineation of the roles and responsibilities of the national government whose services are devolved to LGUs. And of course, a clear delineation would mean that there would be corresponding responsibilities as well as accountability. No? So pagdating dun sa is the responsibilities there clear, then walang sisihan kung sino hindi nagde-deliver or sino ang nagde-deliver. So, and as far as Sorsogon Governor Escudero is concerned, he said that, while EO 138 and Mandanas ruling would provide more resources to local governments, however, the gap between the increased IRA and the increased cost of course, he called it the newly devolved services or the programs and projects to be transferred to local governments, the cost of delivering these services might be higher than the increase in the revenue or on the national tax collection that will be given to local government, which of course he said is very apprehensive about that. And the additional amount of 225 billion estimated to be transferred to local government, also it's intended to, it's intended for development projects. And I think this where there are a lot of issues here. When we try now to look at how this 225 billion pesos will be transferred to the local governments to finance their health, housing, social services, and so on. So that if you're going to look at it in some instances or in many instances, especially for municipalities who belong to the 4 to 6 class municipalities, they find again themselves to be lacking. I mean, the extra money is not enough really to fund the huge appetite for development projects, especially in poor communities. Next slide, please. Okay, that was another observation of the Department of Agriculture, Yusek Pervin, is that let us take note that the additional money flowing to the local government, it means that there will be some apprehension. He expressed apprehensions that about the disposition for capital outlay, especially that in the case of the Department of Agriculture, it says that there will be transferred some of the farm to market roles. No? And of course, now we know that under the local government, the local government has the autonomy to decide. And therefore, he said that the capital outlays might be again left behind because some LGUs who are fond of, and I think this, when it comes to local governance in the coming elections, I think this is very important and critical because we have to see to it that local governments who are really development oriented will be elected, because if they will be electing traditional politicians who will be just going to fund capital outlays such as waiting sheds and so on, or basketball courts and so on. So I mean, these are some of the things that probably we have to look at. And another issue that is being raised is that we have to take note that in although there is an increase in 2022 this year of the about around 37% in the national tax allotment, but next year, which is 2023, there is a high possibility that it will decrease. The tax revenues of the government is expected to decline by 11.4% in 2020. And so this will be the basis of the 2023 national tax allotment. And this means that the national tax allotment for 2023 will most probably be reduced by around 11.4%. Okay, so again, the capacity building of the BLG will be very important in this regard. Now, there's another issue which I think concerns me because it is about retention of the indigent senior citizens. And the transfer of, although right now it is the social pension being implemented by DSWD is around 23.6 billion. But there is a law which created the National Commission on Senior Citizens. And under that law, it says that the function of the DSWD regarding social pensions will be implemented by the National Commission on Senior Citizens. Now, I think this has to be resolved. I don't know how we're going to be resolved this, but will this function of the Department of DSWD also be devolved to LGU? And this, please note, this very big amount. If you, this almost 10% of the increase, as I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. Now, the World Bank noted, of course, and all of us will note that there is an emphasis here that the Mandanas ruling did not amend or did not touch on Section 285 of the local government code. So what was changed only was the section 284, which is about the amount to be transferred as a share of national government. So this means that the allocation of the national tax allotment now called will be still be based on the current distribution formula. And if you under section 185, 285 rather, it is and the 185 yan, or the 285. Okay, so if you are going to look at the provinces, the national tax allotment will be distributed according by level of government, 23% of provinces, cities, 23%, and so on, and barangays. And in each of these share, after getting the share of each level of government, and this will be distributed among provinces or among cities using the population, land area, and equal sharing. So again, the weaknesses of the formula, distribution formula remain the same. So with the Mandanas ruling, I think there is the same problem. First, no, as mentioned by Director Botes earlier, there were already a lot of studies that were undertaken to reform the formula, but so far the initiatives of the DLG was not successful simply because this is a highly political issue, no? And I believe many of local governments will really do not want to change any amount that we would, or any reduction in the amount that is going to receive from national government. Then there's that issue also of the matching of the NGA devolution transition plan. How do we reconcile the devolution transition plan of the NGAs and the LGUs? And what would be, as mentioned by Ed here earlier, kasi ang tinitignan kasi the procedure by which the projects were identified, magkaiba yung sa national government, magkaiba din sa pag ginawa mo sa LGU. So now, that's a big question mark. How are you going to reconcile? While in total, medyo sa tingin natin, simple lang eh, no? Okay, around 234 billion pesos will be transferred from national government to local government. So that is simple. Okay lang yun. I mean, from one bracket to another. But when you go into some details, that's where the problem will arise. So what would be the optimal cost sharing among the local government, provinces, cities, municipalities, barangays, and so on? So these are some of the issues, that are to be raised again when we implement this year, starting this year, the Mandanas ruling. And what I think what is important, another important issue is what is the impact of the Mandanas ruling on the private sector? Would there be a change in, especially under the current pandemic situation? How will the Mandanas ruling affect the private sector? Next slide, please. Then I think I have to give, a silver lining of the Mandanas ruling is that I came across an approach, a methodology by the Department of Agriculture, and they called it, as far as the implementation of the Mandanas ruling. First, as a background, okay, there were some issues regarding extension services which are devolved to local governments, so to provinces and cities and municipalities. No? And there were some issues here, and there were problems that we encountered because local governments failed to deliver extension services. And so the Department of Agriculture was forced to come in and provide services in order that this kind of services will not to the farmers will not be disrupted. So in the case of the Department of Agriculture, they came out with this approach methodology in engaging the local government as far as the extension services are concerned. So they call this the province-led agriculture and fisheries extension systems, or PAFIS. Okay, it addresses the long-standing challenges in agriculture, agri-fisheries extension And of course, it will strengthen the extension services, especially now at centered, so clustered at the provincial level. So it is the province that is much better in the position to plan and implement province-led agriculture and fisheries extension programs. So these are, I think, some of the features of the PAFIS, the province-led agriculture system of the Department of Agriculture. Next slide, please. In the case of the PAFIS here, it will be established by the DA regional field offices and so on. And it will also involve not only bureaus and offices under the Department of Agriculture, but it also involves the other LGUs like the city, municipality, as well as the state university. And I think also it will involve the private sector and then rural-based organizations. So all of this will be in terms of the engagement, mobilization of all the sectors will be under this PAFIS. And in this approach, the national government shall guide and do the steering while the LGUs will do the drawing and the implementation of the PAFIS as mentioned in the AO 138. And in this strategy, the DA, please note, the DA will co-plan, co-invest, co-implement, and co-monitor priority projects in the provinces, particularly embark on commodity specializations to maximize comparative advantages. So it involves a lot of, as far as the functions, activities are concerned, they do this with other sectors. Next slide, please. So here is in the next slide, here is the summary of how the Department of Agriculture will do it. So in the preparatory phase, you have the activities, they organize it, etc. Partnership building and engagement with other stakeholders, conduct stakeholder consultations. In phase 2, they will be establishing, and there will be an endorsement from the Sanggunian. So at the very start, there will be a MOA that will be signed between the Department of Agriculture and the provinces. Okay, so again, engage mo kaagad yung legislative branch of the province. And the third phase is that there will be creation of the center. Okay, so a center or an office will be doing the coordination and monitoring and so on. And of course, it would be probably, the office or the center can be in the provincial capital or any area there. And of course, there would be some officers that would be elected, and this would be part of the agreement between the province and the Department of Agriculture. So you have in phase 4, here you have the process of mapping out of collaborative provincial agricultural fisheries and extension program. So we are going to, once the center has been established, then we are going to prepare, map out what will be are the activities or projects that need to be undertaken, and therefore particular objectives of the agricultural sector. Then they adopt the interventions, the priority commodities in the PCIP. The PCIP and other plans, the PCIP is the Provincial Commodity Investment Plan, which is actually a project introduced by the PIDP project. And so they are part of the process now. And again, they come out with strategic support. So this in short, in brief, is the process by which the Department of Agriculture will be engaging the LGU, the provinces, the municipalities, the cities, and even the barangays. That includes the private sector as well as the civil society organizations. Next slide, please. And here are the co-financing schemes, no? And may mga co-financing dito. So the PAFIC developed collaborative program DA and PLG negotiate. And I think dito yung medyo madugo siguro dito dahil sa negotiations, no? And then purging memorandum, MOA, then the DA and PLG propose funding, kung ano man yung counterpart funding nila, wala na pag-agrihan, and between, of course, yung DA counterpart will be proposed at GAA, and however, for the province, they will be included as part of the Taxation Ordinance. And if they will be sharing of the share of the cities or municipalities, this will also be included in the appropriations of the local government. So, saan gagaling yung gagastusin nila ito? Well, it's part of the additional national tax allotment that will be given to LGUs. Then, of course, aside from that, there will be some release of funds, then monitoring and evaluation, and then submission of progress report. I like it how the Department of Agriculture has come out with this scheme because it isang pinaka-importante dito kasi yung submission of progress report and monitoring and evaluation, etc., which very much lacking in many of the implementation of projects, not only in LGUs, but also in national government agencies. Next slide, please. Okay, here is the log frame, if you may. This is the log frame of the PAFIS as formulated by the Department of Agriculture. By the way, all this what I discussed about PAFIS, meron pong manual developed by the Department of Agriculture, and it is available sa website nila. So you can download all this manual about how the Department of Agriculture will engage the local government in implementing the extension services system. Okay, so we have here under the under the log frame, you have the output number 1, province-led agriculture business extension established. Output number 2, collaborative provincial agriculture and fisheries extension program, work and financial plan developed. Then output number 3, co-financing arrangement and action established. And I really hope that there will be also some financing participation of the private sector here. Then you have the capacity building, which I think as provided for in the EO 138, capacity building for the NJA. And output number 5 is the integrated digital platform advice services established. So the digital platform will be introduced. So I think this is a very good example. I cited this because I find it very interesting. I think probably can use it as a model in terms of engaging the LGU. Next slide, please. And I will have to mention about the CDP plus guidelines of the DILG because here again it is important for LGU, especially after the election. This coming, there will be new set of elected officials, and so there will be a need to either update the comprehensive development plan or adapt or formulate a new comprehensive development plan. And these are the guidelines suggested by the Department of the Interior and Local Government. And it is called CDP Plus. It's simply because it's already mainstreaming the DRR, disaster, and GCA here. And so I think this will be a very good guide for LGU, especially for those local government officials who will be the incoming local government officials will be elected after the May 9, 2022 election. So here are some of the guidelines, and I think you can take a look at this and say, and probably I think the ILG is also providing some assistance. And here is the next slide would provide you the a snapshot of the process of the CDP preparation, no? So yan ang process. Ito kasi sa bandang kaliwa, ito yung sa plus na. Kasi na-update na dito, include na actually, yung plus includes already ecological profile. I think it's the most important one kasi pag usually hindi nila tinitigan yung ecological profile. Yung ano yung, and also in terms of yung risk that are faced by the LGU. Okay, so you can have this also. It is also downloadable. This guidelines of the DILG CDP preparation is also downloadable sa website nila. Next slide, please. And so what's the way forward here? One is, I think, this really important that there was as well, this also mentioned by Sir Ed. No, this is vertical and horizontal linkages across different levels of government in terms of development planning, investment programming, and budgeting. So that's why medyo natuwa kasi ako doon sa agriculture kasi ando doon lahat eh. I mean, the linkages, how we're going to engage, the vertical and horizontal linkages, collaboration, and cooperation among NGOs and the levels of government. This is very important in order to successfully implement the Mandanas ruling. And of course, the CDP manual will be very important. And I think the incoming local government officials should, I think, this time engage really sincerely series of participation. And as I said, the DOS province-led or the PAPIS is a good model on how NGOs and LGUs can work together. And of course, marami pang details na kailangan doon. But still, it's a good start. And the framework has been established. As I said, good framework. And another one is some sectors will say, well, as I said earlier, there was the Section 285 was not changed. Okay, and therefore, ano mangyari? The same problems that we have encountered before, the vertical and horizontal problems, as mentioned by Director Gotes a while ago. Pati ba na, I mean, kahit na dito sa Mandanas ruling, meron ding matatanggap ang Makati, Quezon City, and all the mga rich cities. These are the local governments. Kung ano yung tinatanggap nila, ganun din, tatanggapin nila. So, I think there's not much, except that there will be more also. More resources will also be given to these cities. Kasi when you look at the formula, the allocation formula, 50% ay population. Ito sa mga karamihan ng mga ito highly populated areas. And so, sigurado yan, makikidabang sila ng husto. Here, do we need to reformulate the IRA? Well, I think it's good. As mentioned by Director Gotes, it's a good initiative. But personally, I think it is already too late. It could have been an opportunity for the national government to look at the IRA formula before it was, before the implementing the Mandanas ruling. Why? It is because the Mandanas ruling only pertains to the share. Share lang magkano ang dapat. It did not touch on the allocation formula. So dapat sana, dapat sana na-engage na kaagad yung Congress in order to amend. I mean, personally, I could have been, yung aking preference sana dito. Okay, let us not touch anymore the current IRA. So lahat ng LGUs will receive what they have received as before. Walang problema doon. I think walang magiging problema yun sa mga, in terms of acceptance sa mga local governments. I think hindi sila magre-reklamo doon. And the additional amount, which is around 20%, okay, additional or the 234 billion, paano natin i-distribute? I-distribute sana natin yan based on different formula. Huwag na yung population, land area, and so on. So, dapat yun sana po ang ginawa. Ginawa sana noon pa. And they had a lot of time. No? In 2018, 2019, wala hindi nangyari. So, now, as I said, we have devolution 1.1 and devolution 2.2. We have the same problem. And I tell you, the problems that we had in the first devolution stage, we will be encountering also the same problems that we will be in terms of implementing the Mandanas ruling. Next slide, please. So, again, yun nga sana, no? I mean, of course, sabi ng AO 13A, okay, hindi naman problema yun kasi magbibigay tayo ng growth equity fund. So, ito parang kinokopya natin kasi yung equalization fund in other countries. Eh. But the thing here is, it is an executive order. Okay? So, as Professor Ed Waldo said, hindi naman pwedeng ma-amend, no? I mean, it's just an executive order. So, since it's just an executive order, it is very highly dependent on Congress and, of course, the national government, no? Take, for instance, yung Growth Equity Fund was proposed to be 10 billion for 2022 by BBM. Pero, anong nangyari? Congress only approved 1.25 billion pesos after the 2022. I don't know kung may mga ibang component pa ng growth equity fund na nandun. Pero ang nakita ko doon sa data pa ng BBM, it's only 1.25. Okay, so I mean, how hindi siya magiging significant in terms of, you know, resolving the unequitable distribution of the national tax allotment. So what do we need to do? Are we going to institute? Probably one of the things that we need to do here is institutional provisions of the EU 138, like the growth equity fund. No? Kasi kung batas na yan, kailan talaga nasa, and probably amount na it becomes a block grant, say 10 billion talaga, 20 billion. So that's much better kasi masigurado na meron. And then next is that the Mandanas closes the gap be as far as the information regarding the participation of the private sector, and hopefully, according to the Regional Federation of CSOs President Victor Usaraga, it means that it will reignite the Mandanas ruling will reignite the interest of CSOs to participate in local governance. And lastly, this is what I would like to be the main message of my presentation. Are we committing the same mistakes experienced earlier with the process of local government, albeit of the smaller scale? EU 138 did not adhere to the mantra on fiscal decentralization. Finance follows function. I would like to end my presentation with an example. Why are we always saying finance follows function? Ito yung function mo, ito yung pera na gagamitin mo in order to implement that function. Hindi ho nangyari dyan. Dito, even under the local government code or under EU 138, hindi nangyari kasi, binigyan ko na kayo ng pera, bahala na kayo, ito ngayon yung mga projects ng program, ito, i-adapt nyo. And then, sasabihin ng mga LGUs, lalo ng mga municipalities, nasaan yung pera? Paano na implement yung laki-laking project na yan? I think these are some of the big questions that we have to answer when after implementing initially this year about the Mandanas ruling. And I would like to emphasize, we should have had sana ginawa natin yung finance follows function. Thank you very much for your listening.
Again, thank you so much, Dr. Antonio Avila, for that prolific discussion concerning the implications of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. And we have few key takeaways from your discussion. First is that the national government agencies will be doing the steering while the local government units will do the ruling. And second, we have, as mentioned by Prof. Tayo a while ago, we have the further decentralization, but you've mentioned the devolution 2.0, and we have the devolution 1.0 during the local government code. And then we also have the underlying task of how to clearly delineate the roles and responsibilities of the national government agencies whose services are devolved to the LGUs? And also, lastly, are we committing the same mistakes in terms of the fiscal decentralization? Now, to further shed light on our subject for today, both on the first and second discussion, the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, its significance to local governance, and its ostensible implications, may we now call on the panel reactors.
For our first panelist, she is the former mayor of San Fernando City, La Union, serving for a span of 9 years from 1998 to 2007, and has also been elected as secretary of the League of Cities in the Philippines. She additionally became the first Asian and first Filipina to receive the United Nations Habitat Scroll of Honor Award in year 2000 and a recipient of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Merit Award for Good Governance. Expanding her horizon in governance, she formerly extended her public service as a Secretary General and now as a Special Advisor of CityNet, an association of cities and their stakeholders in Asia Pacific, Special Advisor of City for Yokohama's Y-Port project. Moreover, she was also a board member of the Institute for Solidarity in Asia, mentor for Northern Luzon of Synergia Foundation, an awardee of Sonia Lorenzo Award for Women in Good Governance, charter president, and now member of the board of Solid Waste Management Association of the Philippines, consultant and coordinator for the Marine Life Center of Dingsu, among others. Honorable guests and participants, it is our pride to present to you our first panelist, former Mayor Mary Jane Ortega.
Thank you very much, Jewel, for the introduction. And I would like to greet the organizers headed by Dr. Ed Tayao and to all the guests and the presenters, a very good afternoon. Greetings from La Union. I would just like to bring up the point that when I was going over the Mandanas ruling and reading EO 138, I said, I wonder how the Lady Justice would look like with her scales if we would put the money to be downloaded because of the Mandanas ruling and the functions to be done in exchange for the money downloaded. Will there be a balance? Did they study that? And again, I also would like to take note of what's Sorsogon governor, senator-elect, and used to be senator before, Chis Escudero said that the cost of devolution will be higher than what they will receive. So this is one burden that will now be on the hands of the LGU. However, the LGU should also take it as a challenge, because then they would, if we want more devolution, then we have to come up to that challenge. But I think they should now form and band together among the different leagues, the League of Cities, the League of Provinces, the League of Municipalities, the League of Barangays. All of them should now get together and sit down with the executives and say, these are the things that we do not agree as far as the EO 138 is. When EO 138 was promulgated, did they listen to the LGUs? Did they listen to the leagues? Did they listen to the private sector? Did they go down to the masses and say, here is what you'll have more money, but with this money, you'll have to work double time. You'll have to work doubly hard. I mean, was this something that was shown to them? Was their ownership? Now, those are the different aspects of good governance, which I think was not present, or if it was partially, but not fully. I would also like to mention that this is now the right time to take this up. And I'd say that this is the right timing because we will now have the elections this coming May. And we now have to see to it that we elect officials officials who are not only political leaders, not only those who can get votes, but we should have managers who can manage these functions, who know fiscal responsibility, who know how it is to do what is a devolved function. And now to what the professor said earlier of Valenzuela, where he said that he sees Antonio Avila, he said that you have the NGAs who will be steering and the LGOs will be rowing. I mean, that's, again, not the right frame of mind, I think, because if it is devolved, you should do the steering and do the rowing. And what will the NGAs do? They will then just do oversight. They can just tap your hands and say you're going the wrong way. Or, hello, I'll give you now the seal of good governance. Or, hello, I'll now give you the seal of good financial governance. Or I'll give you the seal of good Mandanas ruling governance. But to steer and to row, these are the functions of LGUs for true devolution. And if it is, as they say, the first step towards federalism, well, I would say this is where there is, we are not in sync with each other. In fact, I remember when we analyzed before with the World Bank, we now have the devolution. They said we've had it for so many years. Let us now look at the national government agencies. Have they accepted devolution to the LGUs? Or do they still want to keep the powers as much as possible? Those are the questions that have to be done. As we have to be capacitated in the LGUs, I think we should also now have an enlightened national government agencies where they will say, okay, we now want to go into full devolution as the local government code has indicated. Those are just my thoughts on these matters. And as I said, let us do it through proper consultation. Let us do it through proper dialogue with national government agencies. But like Congressman Mandanas did when they did not listen to him, then he filed a case in court. Well, that is now the last, of course. Let us try to do it through proper dialogue. And hopefully, after 1 year, we will now see the different flaws of this downloading of the Mandanas national tax allocation. And then we can really sit down. And when next year comes and the national tax allocation will be on the 2020 financial statements, and we know 2020 was a time of COVID, will we still, as Secretary Escudero said, you will now have bureaucratic positions that will have definite pay salaries. And then when your download will be less than what you will be paying for, that is something that should be looked into. So these are my thoughts on this, but I would like to say, I'd like to thank Congressman Mandanas for staying through that difficult path. He has succeeded in getting this extra, or shall I say, the right implementation on how it should be given, not an era, but a national tax allocation. But let us do something to improve it so that the downloading will be done in the right way. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you so much to our former mayor, Mary Jane Ortega. We'll be allowing questions po to our speakers later on. And heading towards our second panelist, he formerly served as a municipal administrator and councilor from the municipality of Capalong in Davao del Norte. Extending his experience from the local governance scene, he additionally came into service as a former president of the Philippine Councilors League, making him an ex-officio provincial board member in Davao del Norte. And currently, his extensive knowledge and experience in the field of local governance can be credited towards his attainment of doctoral degrees in education in public administration, as well as the countless trainings he attended and organized both inside and outside of the Philippines. With that being said, the present executive director for the 17,000 strong Philippine Counselors League is here with us as well for the panel discussion. Honorable guests and participants, it is with our pride to present to you our second panelist, Dr. Hilario Caminero.
Thank you, Kyril and Jewel. Of course, I would like to thank Professor Ed Dayo. Boss, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Ma'am Ortiga, for your thoughts. First, the presentation of Sir Ed Dayo, tama siya that the advent of the Mandanas Supreme Court ruling is not per se a full devolution on the part of local governments. But pabor ako sa sinabi niya na further devolution lang, further decentralization lang siya. No, there is no such thing as full devolution until now. No, yan ang nakita namin habang kami ngayon ay nasa local governments. Klaro tayo dyan. No, although maybe others will continue to believe that there is now a full devolution. But kami sa local governments, hindi namin nakita yan. Still a continuing fight for further decentralization. Doon naman kay Dr. Tony, no? Sir Tony Abila, nung sa discussion namin sa ULAP, no, dahil part kami sa secretariat ng ULAP, we also questioned the impact of the bigger pie to be devolved to local governments, because based on the current formula of the income share, the poorest provinces will not close the gap, no, in terms of fiscal space, no, in exercising funding doon sa local governments. So sinabi naman noon ni former Secretary Wendell Abisado na mag-set up nga ng equalization fund. So yun ang yung sinabi ni Sir Tony na nasa EO 138 ngayon na growth equity fund, no, yung 10 billion, pero hindi naman yun na kumpleto. So that 10 billion should have been the tool in helping the poorest provinces in the Philippines. So base sa current data ng Philippine Statistics Authority. So ang poorest provinces definitely will not close the gap, but still it is a consolation on the part of the local governments that there is a bigger pie now start downloading to the local governments. No, malaki naman, no, ngayon siguro mga more or less 800 billion. Dahil may 3-year framework ito na lahat-lahat after 3 years more or less 1.7 trillion pesos, no, for local governments. Then ano na siya, that will continue as years go by. Doon sa dinidiscuss namin noon sa secretariat sa ULAP, dalawang national government agencies will be more affected. Itong DSWD at saka DA, no? Department of Social Welfare and Development and Department of Agriculture. Why? Because doon sa discussion namin with DSWD and DA, there are plantilla positions, no? Ito dapat malaman din ng maraming stakeholders. There are plantilla positions in the DSWD and DE that are recommended to be also devolved to local governments. But there was a strong reaction from the ULAP because pag i-devolve yun, malaking pera yun eh. Millions of pesos pa rin yun eh. So that can affect the supposedly a big fiscal space, no, for local governments in exercising the power in planning and budgeting. So hindi ko alam kung anong nangyari sa continuing discussion kung paano i-devolve. Part siya ng transition ngayon, no? Transition. Dahil nga dapat daw on our part sa ULAP i-devolve yung pera, yung budget. Hindi i-devolve yung plantilla positions. Yes. So isa yon sa gray area na hanggang ngayon continue ang laban. So sasabihin ko, yung Mandanas Supreme Court ruling, nanalo na tayo. Pero hindi pa talaga tapos ang laban. Marami pang mga gray areas na isettle dyan. So doon naman sa national government giving the ULAP and the local governments the menu of items, no? Parang kuan ba, mag-order ka ng pagkain, ito lang pwede ang ma-order mo. Wala nang iba. Kahit sa gusto mo o hindi, ito lang pwede ang kakainin mo dito. So, yung menu of items na binigay nila sa ULAP o sa local governments na, okay, ito yung pie, nanalo kayo sa Mandanas ruling, ito yung pie, yung pera, i-download namin sa inyo, ito yung mga recommended items na papandingan nyo. So we fought for that because where is now the wisdom of genuine local autonomy? Na dapat i-download ang pera, ang local governments kasi, yung government officials, local government officials, and representatives of various sectors and the whole population, sila yung may alam kung ano yung issues and concerns sa kanilang kanya-kanyang local governments. Hindi naman uniform ang mga problema at pangangailangan ng some 1,500 local governments nationwide. Iba-iba. So dapat yung menu of items na ninirecommend sa local governments na doon lang kayo mag-funding, still until now a gray area, part pa rin yan ng transition. No? Dahil we in the local governments continue to assert the power for planning and budgeting sa pera namin because the case is solved. So dapat wala nang ibang discussion. I-devolve na yung pera, yung mga local governments may kanya-kanyang problema at pangangailangan. Dapat ibigay na sa kanila yung authority para sa kanilang planning and budgeting dahil alam naman nila yung kanilang mga pangangailangan. So, yun din, no? Mga gray areas yan dahil ako kasi minsan nakapasok tayo doon sa secretariat ng ULAP and before the EO 138 was signed by the President, tama si Ma'am Ortiga eh. Hindi naman yun binigay sa mga local governments eh para titingnan kung ano yung mga nakalagay doon. Nakarapat dapat ba? Hindi ba hadlang sa local governments? Tama si Ma'am Ortiga doon. Pareho kami ng pina-fight doon sa ULAP pa lang. Pero at least may doon may deadlock na yung national government versus the local government's fight, no? Nung sinabi na yung menu of items, open naman ang national government. Noon hindi pa. They insisted na itong mga positions from the national agencies should also be devolved to local governments. So, na yun, Ma'am Ortiga, na natin yun, no? Parang part na ng discussion ngayon. So, meaning, the ball is still rolling, no? Tapos, doon naman sa yung ito lang papandingan nyo, na-wave naman nila yon. Okay, sige. we respect the local autonomy, no, of the local government. So part pa rin 'yun ng mga part ng transition. Sinabi lang natin doon na the national government can continue to observe what the local governments are doing. So maganda yung nangyari. Although yung reservation natin, kagaya sinabi ni Ma'am Ortiga, tama 'yun. At saka yun ang mga totoong nangyari doon sa discussion natin, doon pa lang sa level ng sekretariat ng ULAP, na kami ng mga executive directors nakaupo din doon. So, mayroon tayong ULAP na talagang we continue to fight, no, Ma'am Ortega, at saka sa lahat, no. Magandang discussion ito, no? Magandang discussion ito. Parang ano lang natin, parang simpleng discussion lang, no? At saka itong equity fund, okay, yung equity fund, dapat din ni-recommend natin doon na may mga specific ano siya, parang another set of IRR na basis for downloading, no? Baka ma-abuse siya, no? Baka ma-abuse. So, at least in an overall picture, we owe it to the Mandanas-Garcia Supreme Court ruling. In the coming years, on top of our regular internal revenue allotment, hundreds of billions of pesos will be poured into the local governments that can improve fiscal space for planning and budgeting, more public investment, create economic activities, and in creating more economic activities, it will also in return more funds to our local coffer. And again, parang cycle lang yan. If there will be more funds to our local coffers created by public investment, by creating economic activities, in return, there will still be more public social public services. So mabuhay ang Mandanas Supreme Court ruling, at itong mga discussion na ganito, dapat Sir Ed, Sir Tony, Sir Manny, Sir Alex, Ma'am Ortiga, ito dapat continuing advocacy. At saka sa Pimentel Center kay Ma'am Gana, thank you, no, for taking a part. Part naman kami ng advocacy, sabi ko kay Sir Ed, tuloy natin ito. Magandang discussion ito, lalo na pagkatapos ng election. Mabuhay ang local autonomy. Good afternoon.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Hilario Caminero. Later, we will be having the questions from panels to the speakers. Now, for the third panelist, and our final panelist for today's discussion, he is currently studying as a second-year political science student and serving in the Republic, the professional organization of the Department of Political Science, as the executive coordinator for traditional activities from San Beda University, Manila. As an experienced youth leader and youth empowerment advocate, our third panelist undeniably experienced the insides of student leadership as the former student council president for the World City Colleges in Quezon City, and continues his service towards the communities as the present chairman of board of the charity organization named Spreading the Spirit of Giving. Now serving as one of the founders and national president for the Power of Filipino Youth, our panelist vows to constantly focus on warranting Filipino youth's access to learning and education. Honorable guests and participants, it is our pride to present to you our third and final panelist, Mr. Errol Yuri Edulian.
Thank you, Jewel. Thank you, Kairel. First, I would like to thank my professor who invited me here, Professor Gian Paulo Ines, our speaker, Professor Ed, and Dr. Avila, my fellow panelists, Commissioner Honorables, core organizer, and of course, our viewers today. Number one, the importance of government in service. Nakita po natin yung importance ng government service, lalong-lalo na ngayon na-highlight siya in the times of pandemic. Kailangan natin ng ospital, kailangan natin ng gamot, kailangan natin ng higaan para sa mga kapwa natin Pilipino na nangangailangan. And that is one of the government service that the government should provide. Dahil po naramdaman natin ito, all classes, mahirap, mayaman, middle class, naapektuhan ng pandemyang ito. Nakita natin yung pagkakulang sa preparasyon na dapat sana matagal na ito para nakapagpagawa tayo ng maraming ospital at naging ready tayo kahit papaano sa paparating na pandemya. So nangyari na siya nandito na siya. And I'm thankful for this forum because the conversation is continuing. Actually po, before the forum start, I did a survey from my network, almost 100 people na nagsasabing hindi nila alam kung ano ang Mandanas ruling. Some of my friends says na alam ko siya pero naririnig ko siya pero hindi ko masyadong alam At 4 lang po siguro yung nagsabi that they know and understand what Mandanas ruling is all about. And ang pagmamatsyag ng taong bayan is one of the most important things. Katulad po sabi ni former mayor kanina that dapat ngayon doble ang ipoprovide ng ating local government. Dapat doble ang ating nararamdaman na pag-uplift ng buhay ng bawat isa. And because of this, dapat po lalong-lalo na yung mga kabataan, nandoon yung caution, yung pagbabantay talaga sa kung paano ginagamit ito ng ating mga leaders, especially of the upcoming election. We should choose leaders who understand Mandanas ruling. We should choose leaders who shows transparency and who shows that they can uplift the lives of the people using the budget correctly. Kasi po if we elect leaders who do not understand Mandanas ruling, paano na mangyayari yung sinasabi ni Dr. Avila na steering ang ating government? Paano magpo-provide ng guidance ang ating government agency sa ating mga local government para maging rowing wheel? So, youth voters comprises of more than half of the population, if my memory serves me right. Napakalaki po ng boto ng kabataan. And again, I'm thankful for this forum because the conversation is continuing. At dapat po patuloy pa natin itong pag-usapan. And katulad rin po ng sinabi ni Prof. Avila kanina, that we should elect leaders who is development-oriented. Kasi po, napakalaki ng budget na madadagdag at talagang yung development-oriented na pagpili natin ng leaders ay napaka-importante. Now, it makes me think that the upcoming election is nearing. Almost mahigit 1 buwan na lang po ang ating preparasyon para sa election. And like what Prof. Edmund said, that it is one of the things that we should look at our leaders na naiintindihan nila itong Mandanas ruling. How can we make this a national understanding or a national agenda na naiintindihan ng lahat? We are lacking of time para maipakita sa bawat isang Pilipino that this is what we should look at to our leaders, that they understand. So, ayun lang po. Nagpapasalamat po ako sa inyong lahat. Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you so much, Mr. Ariel Yuri Edoyan, for that. And to all our panelists, if you wish to ask po questions to our speakers, Professor Edmond Tayo and Dr. Antonio Avila, for further refinements, please go ahead po.
Do you have any questions po, Mr. Caminero, Ms. Ortega, and Mr. Ariel Yuri Edoyan to our guest speakers, Mr. Avila and Mr. Tayaw? You can proceed po.
Ano lang, kunting komento lang, no? Ang ganda ng forum ngayon, adverse siya, may mga galing sa youth, may mga estudyante galing universities, no? Sa political science at saka sa public ad, no? Programs. Tsaka may mga local elected officials. Tsaka may mga economists pa dyan, no? So hopefully we can expand further dahil magandang discourse ito eh. Part siya ng public discourse. So congratulations to the organizers.
Thank you, Doc Larry.
Joel,
For taking time.
Joel, ang pwede lang ba magtanong sa mga resource persons, yung ating mga panelists, yung private person na katulad ko, pwede rin ba?
Pwede
Later
din.
po, for open forum session po. Wala na po
Hindi
ba
naman.
questions for the panelists?
Ganun
Wala na
ba?
po.
So
I have
karapat,
raised my
Former
hand.
mayor po, meron.
karapat
Okay.
dapat din pala ako Hindi, actually hindi tanong. Dagdag ko lang doon sa presentation ni Dr. Tony. Yung binanggit niya yung discussion din ni Ed Dayaw kanina, yung vertical and horizontal planning, ano. Siguro kung pwede natin mabisita yung, baka nakalimutan na dahil sa tagal na, yung Joint Memorandum Circular number 7, series of 2007, signed by 4 national government agencies, DILG, NEDA, DBM, and DOF. Magandang, binanggit mo kasi yung CDP planning,
Yes.
etc. Nandun lahat, actually nandun ang framework. Nakalimutan na yon kasi matagal na. Yun lang.
Actually, Director Manny, updated lang yun, yung Joint Memorandum Circular na yun on planning and budgeting. Pinasa noong 2016. May update na.
Okay,
regarding
good.
that.
Good.
And actually, yun din ang naging basis nung ginawa ng BLGD, yung CPD Plus na guidelines. Yun din ang pinagbasihan.
Ay, good. Thank you.
Ms. Ortega, please proceed po.
I would just like to ask Dr. Ed Dayaw, does Logodef and Hans Seidel Foundation plans to do more of these webinars before elections so that the people would then be more aware that they should really elect for the right leaders in their local government units so they'll be able to implement the Mandanas ruling in the proper way?
Yes, ma'am.
Or
Thank you for
are you planning to do more after elections?
Thank you for that question, Ma'am MJ. Actually, I should be the one to apologize. This forum should have started much earlier. But, medyo ang hirap lang talaga nitong pandemic. In fact, not even sure how to react with the level 1 na lahat, face-to-face. No? Everything is now also limited as a result of the face-to-face. Now, having said that, there's another forum after Holy Week. We target the civil society to participate. That's on April 19. And April 19.
18.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday yun eh.
18.
Pasensya na, nalito ako sa schedule. It's good that my attention was called by Director Manny. Medyo nagsisenior moments na tayo. Yeah, April 19, which is a Tuesday, at 9 in the morning, and April 20, where we target the LGU's officials, no, both elected and career local officials. Of course, mix pa din yung magiging attendance yan, I'm sure. Now, after elections, we still need to finalize engagements with the LGUs as we intend to contribute in the capacity development at the local level. Nag-usap na rin kami ni Boss Larry dyan sa issue na yan because there is so much work to be done, particularly when it comes to local legislation. And of course, the Philippine Counselors League would be very helpful in that regard. I have also engaged, no, and but Dr. Tony knows this, as I am also
Recording
engaged
stopped.
with the newly created National
Recording
Commission on,
in progress.
no, so hopefully we can get agencies also to participate para continuous yung pag-uusap between the different levels of government and also between the LGUs, no. Kasama din po natin dito sa partnership na to, Ma'am MJ, ang your very own League of Cities, of course. In fact, they're one of the first, together with the League of Provinces, to support us in this endeavor, no. And of course, with the generosity of Hans Seidel Stiftung and Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance, we managed to fast track, no, the series, no, this series of webinars. At katulad nung nadinig natin kay Mr. Yuri kanina, malaking factor ang involvement ng youth dito. So yun ang ginagawa natin, no. We're trying to really approach, no, the popularization of the issue as comprehensive as possible, as inclusive as possible, so that later we'd be more effective in promoting accountability. Na yun ang perennial issue. Dito nga sa chat room, pinag-uusapan yung accountability sa local level. Actually, sagutin ko na rin yung question na yan. Nakita ko yung nakapost na yun. Dapat sensitive tayo hindi lang sa accountability sa local level, kahit sa national level. At yun ang aking ine-emphasize kanina doon sa aking limited engagement sa pag-uusap sa national level kung paano ito i-roll out. Pare-pareho tayo ng ine-echo dito. Bagong magsimula yung forum with Dean Alex, with Dr. Larry, and the reaction of Ma'am MJ and all the others, para kasing may kanya-kanyang echo chamber yung mga iba't ibang levels of government, iba't ibang agencies hindi nag-uusap, no, to the point na merong ang tawag dito contempt, no, bawat isa, na ang tingin ng isa mas magaling kami kaysa doon sa isa, and so on. So you're not able to really push, no, collaboration between the different levels of government and between the LGUs themselves. Kasi pag may collaboration na ma'am and our dear participants, I'm sure kasama pati accountability dito, kasi makikita ng bawat isa yung kanyang-kanyang papel pero hindi nga po ganoon ang nangyayari. In fact, one of the reasons why we need to continue to popularize this issue is as mentioned by Ma'am MJ and all the others, pinag-uusapan natin yung system reform. Kasama ito lahat sa system reform, because at the end of the day, it's the mechanism which is really lacking. Ang Pilipino, kahit nga yung 1987 Constitution, ang gaganda ng mga provision doon, pero hindi natin ma-implement kasi nga yung mekanismo ang kulang. So yun, so sana ganun po ang thinking natin, no? There will be more funds at the local level. Yeah, that's true, as a result of some of the PAPs being defunded at the national level. But let's not forget that even with these additional resources, it doesn't necessarily mean local governments are much better off and that they are really a lot richer compared to before. Hindi ho ganun yun. In fact, ang daming mga unfunded mandates hanggang ngayon, even with the advent of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. So pero kung hindi lang madadagdagan yung resources, kung hindi ma-optimize pa yung paggamit nitong resources na ito, mas maganda. So kaya nga po ganun, two-pronged ang ating approach, ano? We help the local governments, but apart from that, we help them capacitate themselves and so on, but also we emphasize the need to work together. Ganon.
One last item. May
Yes, ma'am.
I? I would just like to mention that Nathaniel von Einsiedel, Dinky von Einsiedel, got in touch with me, and he said that he'll be doing a research of how some of the local government units would be implementing it. So probably it would be good, Dr. Tayao, if we can also get in touch with him so that and if we can do a similar, he cannot cover so much, but probably if we can do a better, more comprehensive research, so we would now know this is how it was downloaded, this is how they will apportion the funds. That would be a good starting point. That's
Yes,
just a
ma'am.
suggestion.
We'll do that
I
po.
support Ma'am Ortiga, no? Dapat ngayon pa-start pa lang ng pag-download. After 1 year implementation, dapat ma-quantify na agad yung impact. Dahil maraming mga problema diyan. Example, Sir Tony, dahil sa fiscal siya eh. Ito kasi more on fiscal ito eh, no? Ang nangyari ngayon, parang rush eh. Rush ang pag-download, tapos yung ginawa sa review. Kami kasi, yung budget, kahit ilang billion yan, hindi yan pwedeng i-implement pag hindi namin i-approve. Kaming mga city and municipal councilors. Okay. Ang nangyari ngayon, sige, approve na lang. Sige, i-rush na lang yung transition devolution plan na template. Parang yung iba, okay naman yung iba, seriously. Pero dahil busy nga sa politika, yung iba parang drawing na lang. No? Na sige, yung template, i-approve na lang, i-built-in na lang yan doon sa, dahil siya part siya ng mga codes yung mga mandatory codes na i-approve yung budget on or before October 16, pwede siyang masubmit basta kasali na yung Transition Devolution Fund. No? Transition Devolution Plan. Okay. So, yun, ina-approve lang, hindi pa masyadong naiintindihan. Tama yung sinabi ni Sir Ed. Kung tanungin mo ngayong mga local governments, ano ba yung nasa Mandanas? Hindi nga, basta na-approve lang namin dahil late na Late na, October 16 na, nasa local code. Ma-administratively charge kami. Pag ma-delete. Ngayon may mga kaso Tingnan nyo dyan sa DILG, National Office. Sir Manny, sayang wala na siya doon. Pero may mga kaso doon, nag-away-away, lalo na yung mga conflicting political parties dahil political favor na nga So kanya-kanyang political groupings. So yung iba, dahil sa pag-approve, rush lang para ma-comply lang yung nasa EO 138. So yun na, marami na ding mga questions. So maganda ngayon, tama yun, dapat Sir Tony, Sir Eda, Ma'am Ortiga, dapat ngayon i-review na siya. Dahil after 1 year, i-review na siya. Dahil magandang yan, habang hindi pa lumala, no, hopefully maraming mga dito, mga good Samaritans that will fund the research of this particular project. And hopefully PCL can also help in the data gathering. So thank you Ma'am Ortiga, no? Dahil ito kasi hindi pwedeng pabayaan dahil nakita ko may marami ng gaps. Dahil rush nga So thank you Ma'am Ortiga.
Salamat din sa mga inputs Doc Larry. In fact, nakatingin si Sir Manny. Mabuti pala, boss, at in-involve na rin natin ang mga legal experts dito, no, in this regard. Pero sa next forum, attend si former ASEC Yayi Doke, no? Yung law firm niya mismo ang partner namin dito. So kasi ang talagang expertise nila is on local governance. So marami pala tayong makover dito, especially the issues raised by Ma'am MJ earlier. May mga nagtataas ng kamay? Jewel?
Right po. Ayan. Thank you so much po, former Mayor Mary Jane Ortega, Dr. Hilario Caminero, and Mr. Errol Yuri Idolian for that substantial and insightful point of clarifications and supplementary discussions concerning our subject matter. Now proceeding to our next part of the program, our public open forum session. Before we begin, please be reminded of the following open forum reminders.
And if you wish to ask questions po during the open forum session, please raise your hand and wait for the hosts to entertain your questions. And also, you may send your questions directly to the program hosts din po through private message or through the Zoom chat box.
You may also use the chat section or react and give opinion concerning the open forum discussion, but please remember to keep your comment and statements relevant to the assigned topic.
And also, if you wish to ask a question on a particular speaker, please state or mention it upon sending the queries.
And lastly, use appropriate words and proper behavior at all times. Respect the speakers and panelists by listening attentively to their responses. You may send your questions or raise your hand. First, Mr. Alex Brillantes.
Thank you for this opportunity. First and foremost, congratulations to all of you. Really, really great. Just a very, very quick comments lang po. We had once a forum like this in Kalingpok, and I mentioned that parang deja vu. Alam po din na Tony, 1992, pare pinag-usapan na natin na noon. And these are the same issues in terms of capacity, in terms of downloading, in terms of finance follows function. But you know, that's one. No? But siguro, point two na tayo. But I'm sure you've seen that. Number two, pare, as regards the RFA that Professor Tayo is concerned, ang ganda because Tony Avila, we're also part of the RFA, Rapid Field Appraisal. Actually, we had another Rapid Field Appraisal with UNDP in 2016. And right now, as we speak, we're doing another ongoing Rapid Appraisal with the PSP, Philippine Society of Public Health, that's supported also by the Office of Senator Tolentino, UNDP, and RCP. And part of the RFA po, sir, is the inquiry on, Tony knows about the methodology, inquiry of how the RFA is being implemented in the various regions. It's a rapid field appraisal. Number three, as far as this is concerned, and these are direct questions, want to Sir Ed Tayo, pare, you mentioned about so many LGUs. And shouldn't we really push the envelope and say it's about time for us to seriously talk about amalgamation? It's about time because we have so many LGUs at this point going against the tide in terms of gerrymandering, but sometimes nobody has. We should get an advocate, and the Palawan issue. Right now in DILG, Dino is talking about amalgamating our barangays, but amalgamation should be really on as a real reform part for local governments. And for Sir Tony, pare, yung nabanggit mo about the, we missed the chance. Sayang nga eh. Pero alam mo pare, the way I look at it, baka lugi talaga ang mga LGU eh. Everybody's saying, yeah, Mandanas, ang daming pera. Pare, nobody has really, we have to do an honest to goodness study. Baka lugi tayo pare, baka lugi ang mga LGU. Kasi ang frame ng NGA, ilipat lahat, including PPAs as Sir Tayo mentioned. Baka lugi sila. So pare, we need people like you, an honest to goodness modeling, if you may, and then go back to exactly what you said. The same issues in 1992, pare. The absorptive capacities, lilipat lahat, and this whole issue about lilipat na nga natin sa kanila, tingnan natin kung kailangan nila. But without really putting everything down to us. Yes, we've also had a lot of accomplishments over the past 30 years na. Mayor Mary Jane is here. We've had many good examples naman. Yung ating Kalingpok, marami naman yan. We still can push further. So I guess the whole message here is it continues to be an evolutionary thing. And as you said, pare, sabi nga ni Ma'am Mary Jane, baka next year, baka mas maganda ng usapin natin. But it's really an excellent opportunity. And thank you, Tony and Ed, for your very incredible and deep insights. So, ano sa tingin mo pare yung amalgamation? Hindi ka pare, in terms of yung baka lugi pa sila pare. Salamat ha.
Thank you, Dean Alex.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Alex.
Actually, Dean Alex, to our host, Yuri, Professor Gian is the esteemed former Dean of UP-NCPAG, former CHED Commissioner. And siguro wala ka nang mas makikita pang as energetic as Dean Alex pagdating sa public administration and local governance. Anyway, tinitingnan natin lahat yan, Dean Alex, at tama yung, alam mo naman, kahit nasirang plaka na tayo, I joined the local governance advocacy quite later than you guys. But what's this, amalgamation has always been there, but hindi masyadong pinapakinggan. Alam ni Ma'am MJ yan. In fact, even GIZ partnered with the Logodef in coming up with the what they call a cookbook. No, wala dito si Jojo Villano. Jojo will join us in the next forums. No, he himself was engaged with the GIZ when that was formulated. Pero ang kadulud-duluhan nito, pag tiningnan po natin, itong revision talaga, comprehensive review ng local government code. Alam mo, bago naging senador si Senator Tolentino, ang nag-chair ng Committee on Local Government si Sani Angara. At nung siya ay nasa House of Representatives, nakatrabaho namin yan ni Mon Casiple because of the Political Party Development Act, which is, of course, I'm sure you guys will agree, very political din an issue, no? Na-approve sa House, pero mysteriously biglang hindi natuloy sa Senado at naghihiring, biglang nawalan ng kuryente and so on and so on. Anyway, so that's another story entirely. Pero ang nakakasama ng loob nung na-draft na kung paano yung comprehensive approach Ang ibig sabihin kasi ng comprehensive approach din, Alex, pag tinignan mo yung code, hindi mo ihihiwala yung book 1, book 2, book 3. Kasi may mga whether we like it or not, halimbawa, nasa book 3 yung reclassification ng LGUs, hindi naman siya political lang. Kaya ka nagre-reclassify, at least as our experience would suggest, many LGUs would like to be reclassified, not so much because of reclassification, not so much because they're entitled to be cities, not so much because they're entitled to be provinces, but they simply want to have more share of the national revenue. So, hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit nung nag-go na yung supposed comprehensive review nabago under Senator Angara. So eto ngayon tayo kay Senator Tolentino, nag-pandemic naman. So yung kaninang binabanggit ni Commissioner Gwen and the PILG with Ms. Clarice, talagang kailangan tuloy-tuloy itong advocacy na ito. Buhay pa si Tatay Nene, pinag-uusapan na natin itong mga reformang to. Hindi na umandar-andar. Sabi mo nga din, Alex, puro tayo approach, hindi tayo nakakaabot. So hopefully, no, with the involvement of our youth partners. By the way, kaya San Beda ang involved dito, magtuturo na rin tayo sa San Beda University College of San Beda University Graduate School of Law, no? So they have a very deep bench, kumbaga, no, when it comes to the study of the law. We've been studying governance all along, but hindi nagma-match yung batas Palagi iba yung nangyayari. So hindi ko alam how we're going to approach this, but in the end we should really pull resources together and engage policymakers.
We have another question from Mr. Eril Yuri Idulian. Please proceed.
Yes,
Good afternoon po again, Prof. Ed and Dr. Avila. My question po is, how can we translate Mandanas ruling to be understood by Filipino people who are not into university, the majority of Filipino people po, para mas madali po nila maintindihan? How can we translate this po, or how can we make them understand?
Siguro ako na naman. Sige, Doktor.
Mauna muna ako. Siguro, una-una, we have to translate it to local dialect. I think that's the first one. Para mas maraming tao na makakaintindi. Kasi kung hindi mo ita-translate yan, unang-una, hindi yan mag-interesado kasi hindi maintindihan. So secondly, of course, you have to laymanize. I mean, laymanize about kung ano yung impact, kung ano yung features na Mandanas ruling. So, laymanize mo. And third is, you provide examples. Yung very concrete examples that people can relate to. So, I think if you can do that, then you'll be able to reach more people to understand it. Thank you.
Well, from our end naman, kaya yun na nga, we're trying to partner as much possible with as many stakeholders as possible, especially with civil society, especially with the academe, no? Kasi para sa tingin ko, no, sila yung continuously engaged dito sa usapin na to. Kasama na dito yung mga leagues of local government. Kung natatandaan mo, Doc Larry, Ma'am MJ, Dean Alex, nung binuo natin noong 2009 yung Philippine Consortium on Good Local Governance. No? Before that, kasama natin si Kwan dyan, sila Eli Ricote, no? At saka si Ma'am Grace Gorospe Hamon. No? So, nung binuo natin yan, kasi yung mga liga, mas maganda kung nag-uusap din sila. And if you remember, the initial discussions for revision of the code, may kanikan, lalo na yung reformulation ng IRA palagi yung pinakamahirap pag-usapan. At may kanya-kanyang posisyon bawat liga. So sa tingin ko, unang-una, yung mga stakeholders, dapat continuous yung pag-uusap nila. At yung mga makakatulong sa atin para mas mapalawak yung pag-intindi dito sa mga usaping ito, katulad nga ng civil society, ng academe, no? Tuloy-tuloy ang ating engagement sa kanila. Siyempre, kasama din supposedly ang media dito every now and then kapag naiimbita tayo, si Dean Alex naiimbita din every now and then sa mga TV show, kailangan na i-inject mo palagi itong mga konkretong issue na ito. Hindi pala ang pinag-uusapan natin kung anong background, kung nakapag-aral itong kandidatong to, kung marunong kumanta, kung gaano kadami yung umaattend ng rally, hindi napupunta doon sa mga mas konkretong usapin. So mag-contribute tayo doon in our little way, in our small discussions, in your student activities. Tuloy-tuloy lang na pag-usapan itong issue na to. Kasi hindi naiintindihan ng tao, kung hindi simple lang, hindi na pag-uusapan, no?
Thank you so much
Alright,
po.
Thank you so much, Mr. Errol Yuri Idulian and Professor Edmund Tayaw. Once again, thank you so much to our esteemed speakers. I think there's no other question na. Professor Edmund Tayaw and Dr. Antonio Avila, thank you. Also to our very insightful panelists, former Mayor Mary Jane Ortega, Dr. Hilario Caminero, and Mr. Errol Yuri Idulian. Now to finally end this event, may I call on the Philippine country representative of Hans Seidel Stiftung, Mr. Guts Heinicke, for his closing remarks.
Hello, a wonderful afternoon to everyone. I'm Caroline Lee, Program Coordinator of the Hans Seidel Foundation. I'll be giving the closing remarks. Mr. Guts Heinicke sends his regards, by the way. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for this activity today. Very engaging, very insightful, and I'm really thrilled that we're having this first of a series of this online discussion on this topic. Many thanks to, of course, the Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance, PILG, and Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana, of course, Clarice Aquino. Many thanks to Professor Edmund Tayaw of the Local Governance Development Foundation. And of course, to our esteemed speakers and the supporting organ. You haven't been hearing me pala? Okay.
Latter part lang naputol.
Latter part.
Okay. So, allow me to greet Commissioner Gwen, a belated happy birthday. I just read from the post that I think she celebrated about her birthday last 28th. Belated happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Ma'am.
Happy birthday.
Salamat po. Thank you.
So, we're really glad to be working with the PILG. So, thank you very much to Mr. Manuel Gotis, Professor Gian Ines, Professor Edmund Tayaw, Dr. Antonio Avila, our reactors, former Mayor Mary Jane Ortega, Dr. Hilario T. Caminero, and Mr. Yuri Idulian. Thank you very much to the Leagues of Cities, Provinces, and Councilors, the Bukidnon State University, Let me name the organizations in random order: Department of Political Science, San Beda University, the Political Science Students of Mindanao Network, Power of Filipino Youth, and the DOTBE law offices. So you have heard our audience in the room, and perhaps also in the Facebook live streaming, our speakers call to attention the need to maximize the use of our country's resources in a way that contribute to the country's long-term progress and growth. As one of our speakers said, many studies have been done, but there seems to be a lack of legislative strategies by the government. Our speaker has, one of our speakers has Prof. Tayo. He explained the Mandanas-Garcia ruling in a way that is simple to understand. And as for the implications, these were explained by Dr. Antonio Avila, who gave his position emphasizing on how finance follows functions and how he sees this as a devolution instead of a deeper decentralization. And thanks to our actors, our reactors, our panel of reactors who called attention to the need to do a proper consultation and dialogue, and to ask well, they pointed out the tough questions have yet to be asked and answered. Well, the devil is in the details, as they say, and the details of this ruling and its full implementation have yet to be delved into. And finally, our last reactor pointed out the importance of governance in service and the need to have leaders who are development oriented. So that is putting it in a nutshell, so to speak. But indeed, I'm so glad to hear from our speakers and reactors as well the need for this conversation to continue, and it will be continued as mentioned by Prof. Tayo, that we will be having the next activity in April, the morning of April 19, a Tuesday, and the following day, April 20, we'll have one for in the afternoon. So the one on the 19th will be for civil society, and the one for the 20th will be for the local executives. And if we'll see how this goes. If necessary, we can also have more than that beyond the current schedule. So before I conclude, can you just give me a few moments to ask everyone to please like and follow the pages, the Facebook pages of the PILG and the HSF. And if we can, it would be great if we can hear from our participants your opinion about the activity today. How did you find it? Please let us know let us know your comments and suggestions by responding to an online survey. We will have the link in the chat box. So kindly access the link, participate in the survey, let us know what you think, and that would help us a lot in being able to explain to our head office how we can have more of these activities that help to explain the Mandanas ruling in support of better governance. Okay. That's it. Thank you everyone once again, and have a good afternoon.
Again, thank you so much. Sorry po. Miss Caroline Lee, Program Coordinator from Hans Seidel Stiftung, speaking on behalf of Mr. Gotts Heineke, the Philippine country representative of Hans Seidel Stiftung, for that insightful remarks to end today's discussion. And we would like to ask po our participants to open their cameras for, if we may po, for a photo opportunity with our guest speakers and panelists.
For the first page, please smile. 1, 2, 3. For the second page, please smile. For the third page, fourth, and fifth. All right. Again, we would like to extend our gratitude towards our esteemed speaker, Professor Edmund Tayo and Dr. Antonio Avila, to our panelists as well, former Mayor Mary Jane Ortega, Dr. Hilario Caminero, and Mr. Errol Yuri Edolian. And most especially to our guests and participants who have been with us and gave their interactive participation for today's discussion.
Once again, I'm Kayriel Tolete.
And I am Jewel Elefane, and we have been your host for today's session regarding the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and the local governance in 2022 elections.
And thank you so much. And we are hoping to have you with us again in yet another discussion on local governance and beyond. Stay safe po, everyone.
Salamat sa lahat.
Salamat, Professor
Thank you.
Tayo.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
po.
attending.
Regards kay
Ma'am,
Mayor. Take care.
Salamat.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, Gwen. Thank you, Clarice.
Thank you, Ma'am
Thank
Carol.
you, Miss Carol. Thank you.